Share with us your Twitter handle and also the one thing you've done today to improve your well-being.
And another thing to add just before we start our session, we're building a wellbeing community. So this is where you can find out all about these weekly wellbeing webinars on a Wednesday as well. That's how I remember it, all the W's. And if you would like to join, then on our website where you will find the link to add your details. So please do go onto the website and have a little look at all the resources on here as well. So we have all of the slide sets from all of the sessions, we have all the recordings, and you'll be able to find out about other activities in the world of wellbeing.
Welcome to Yasmin from Kent and Medway NHS Social Care Partnership. Welcome to Rosanna. Welcome to, just missed that one, Seema from Bristol. Please share with us the one thing you've done today to improve your well-being. I can see Fiona. Fiona, thank you for sharing that you're doing a dance and a workout with your daughter. Welcome.
So as we get started today, please do connect in the chat box. We're running on Zoom today, and we are also running live on YouTube as well. So if you are watching live on YouTube, then hello. We've got a couple of polls today. If you can't access the polls because you're on YouTube, please do add your thoughts and comments to the chat box in there as well. So welcome everybody. My name's Zoe Lord. I'm part of the Horizons team and delighted to co-facilitate this session. It's a really important day today. Our topic is all about the health and well-being of our BAME colleagues. We've got some fantastic speakers today to share their knowledge and experience, but we'd also like to learn from you too. So please do share your thoughts, your ideas, any resources in the chat box so that we can learn and share together. So the aims of all of our sessions really is to offer support, knowledge, wisdom for anybody who wants to look after themselves better and look after the well-being of other health and care staff. We'll share lots of activities, and Sonia will be sharing the offer that is available on our People website as well. And it's a really good opportunity to connect with others and build our connective community.
On our agenda today, we've got Zoe. You've already met Zoe, and I will co-facilitate with Zoe. My name is Elizabeth Nyawade. On the agenda, we will hear from Dr. Sonia Wellbeing on the update on the national support offer. And then we've got a lineup of really exciting speakers today. We will hear from Yvonne Coghill on why we need to take action now. And then we will hear from Marie and Navina. Both will share with us the practical things we can do on health and well-being for our BAME colleagues. And then we will have a session about a conversation led by Helen Bevan, and that will have our speakers today who will be in conversation with Helen. And in the end, we will close with a call to action and some remarks, and also share with you what we will do on our next session. So the team today, you've met both me and Zoe. We are your facilitators for today. And our contributors are the lineup. We have Dr. Sonia Wellbeing, we have Yvonne Coghill, Marie, Gabriel, and Dr. Navina Evans. And Helen Bevan will facilitate the conversation with our contributors today. Behind the scenes, we have our technical hosts. We have Paul, Zara, Tej, and Annabelle. And on the chat box facilitators today, we have Rosanna, we have Louise, and we have Cheryl And on social media, we have Lee, who will be tweeting throughout the session today. And on YouTube, we have Oli. So we're going to begin by hearing from Dr. Sonia Wellbeing. Dr. Sonia Wellbeing is our national lead on the health and well-being agenda. And together with their team, have been really instrumental in putting these sessions together. Over to you, Dr. Sonia Wellbeing.
Sonia, you're just on mute at the moment, but I can unmute you. There we are.
You'd think by now, wouldn't you? After all of this experience, I would have learned. Sorry, everybody. You missed it. Yeah, it was wonderful as well. Thank you. Thank you. Great to see so many people joining us today for this really important conversation. So I wanted to just start off, as I've done each week, and just tell you a little bit about what's happening in the local offers that we're doing. So we've got our online people.nhs.uk website. We've got stuff that's being updated to there all the time. I've given a bit of a shout out in the chat box because we've got a people_NHS Twitter account that we've kind of set up and gone live with really today. So would love to get some active following on that, and we'll post all of our updates on there as well. So if you're interested, come and give us a follow, and we'll mutually follow you back while they'll allow us to do that. We've had about 97,000 download, which is amazing, the free apps that we've got, and over 31,000 visitors to the website. So what we're taking from that is, right now people really want to self-support. We've had over 1,300 calls to the helpline and 700 text conversations. So again, we're really understanding what people are needing from us through those conversations. Just because I know it's on the top of everybody's mind, the social care offer will soft launch this week, and then you'll see the splash of all of the information next week. Some of the information is different. So for the self-guided mental health support, there's a different login, so it's specific for social care. The helpline, the text line, and the listening line and the bereavement line will be the same numbers. So again, they're soft launching from later this week. So just keep your eye on that. We'll publish that on Twitter as that goes live. What else did I want to say on this slide? I think that's everything on this one. Next slide then, please, Zoe. Thank you. So our most popular content is the how to support staff fasting during Ramadan. And I think what we're learning from the interaction that we're getting with you both through these sessions and what we're seeing on the website is the more practical, the better. So we're hearing that message loud and clear, and really, really pleased to see that content like this is popular and needed. So again, we'll be supporting that as we move forward. Thanks, Zoe. Next slide. Lovely. So you may have caught Zoe talking with Alan just a little bit about our common rooms. So what we've decided to call them common rooms, it probably doesn't do it justice because we've got a great offering in these rooms. You've got at least one, if not two, psychologically and grouped trained hosts. So you've got people there to build a really warm environment for you to come into. Everybody is welcome into these spaces. We are going to be testing these out over the next couple of weeks. Some of the staff rooms are open, so anybody can access. There'll be no more than 10 people in each room. So there's a really rich and structured conversation that can take place and help you to decompress. We're also going to be trialing profession-specific rooms where we think that that's an offer that will be more helpful. So always open to feedback. So please, if there's a specific room that you think will be useful, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. Thank you. Next slide. I should have said big shout out to Alan Nobbs, Nick Gray and Edith for the work on common rooms, because I know that that's been a piece of great work. And here I want to thank Cheryl Samuels, who you'll see later, and her team. Really difficult times for us all at the moment, listening and watching, hearing about our colleagues who are losing their life on the front line. And we are really mindful of the messages that we send and how they land. What we wanted to make sure is that, sorry, can we just go back one slide? We just skipped a slide, sorry, that's brilliant. Cheryl and the team have put together some really thoughtful guidelines, informed from you guys in the system around what might we do when we've got the loss of a colleague, what action can we take, what's good practice, what's best practice. So that's now up on the website for you to access. And thank you, next slide. And then just to remind you that you don't have to ring the Samaritan's line if you have got a specific element of support that you want around any area to do with bereavement, end of life care. I'll talk again in a moment, but one of the questions that we had in setting up this service is we wanted to get a national offer, a comprehensive national offer in line with our frame and research up quickly so staff felt supported. In the last couple of weeks, what we've been able to do is to step back and say, who does this offer speak to? Whose voices are maybe not here within this offer? And how might we do this better? I've had a great conversation with Yvonne at one point this week, and we were listening to our Filipino colleagues talk about the loss that they're experiencing in their community. So we've just put a call out today through our counselling networks. Hospice UK are going to support us to set up a specific offer for our Filipino colleagues. Again, Tagalog speaking, we're really hoping, but definitely that more culturally informed conversation. So just open to wanting to do the right thing by all of our communities, but really respecting that we can't do that alone. So really looking forward to today's session to help us think about that. Thanks, Zoe. The next slide. So what we're doing these next couple of weeks, we're reviewing all of the offers that we've got in terms of access and inclusivity. What is it about our offers that might make this more appealing? We know that there are groups of our staff, we'll talk about that today, who maybe don't see themselves in some of our offers. So how can we make that better? How can we make that more accessible? Are there specific things that we can do to enable this offer to appeal across the board? We are launching this week advice and best practice for groups of staff who we know may require additional support. Our BAME colleagues are a really good example of, you know, you're at the top of our minds. This is a really scary time right now, and we know that the fear and anxiety within our communities is higher. So how might we respond to that? How might local organisations respond to that and do that really well? And we've seen some great examples of that happening this week with chief executives writing out to staff and really assuring them. We've got React training. So Neil Greenberg, who you heard in our first webinar, he is a military trained psychiatrist advisor. So he's given us a peer support program that's a 45-minute webinar, some great training, a great model of peer support in that, but a structured conversation that you can have. So over the next couple of weeks, that's going to be coming live. Zoe Birch and the team have got some great resources in terms of line management, support and training. And again, just to re-emphasize, there is no substitute for line management, for team support. And that's why you'll see a lot of our offers are aimed at well-being in the place that you exist in, bringing that team to life, bringing that community to life. I wanted to give a shout out to Project 5 that's launching this week. The link's up there. They're offering one-to-one individual sessions with trained counsellors and coaches. So again, one to look at. And then we've just had a preview this week of our national site, which will be for all staff to just go on and check, how am I doing? How is my mental health? How's my well-being? Is there something more I should be doing? And the site will guide and direct you, but also prompt you to be thinking about your own mental health and well-being. So we're just trying to get the language right in that. We're trying to make that as appealing as possible. It's confidential. We don't, you know, there'll be no data that comes to us so we can check up on what you're doing. It's all there for you to benefit from. So again, we'll be piloting that. So perhaps in one of our sessions, we can bring that on and you can have a live look at it and tell us what you think. Thanks, Zoe. That's me finished for today.
Thanks, Sonia. You think you're finished for today, but there are lots and lots of questions in that chat box. So I'm going to suggest we come to the chat box maybe a little bit later in the session, so that we can just pull some of these questions out for you. One question that came up a couple of times was, what does REACT stand for?
I knew you were going to ask me that. It's something really good, and I'll find out before the end of the show.
I'm always like that in these quiz games, when they ask you a question and you think you knew it before you were asked it. And also, Sonia, there's quite a lot of chat around the word common room. So if people have got some alternative language, or you think that this could be framed a little bit differently for different groups, then please do share your ideas in the chat room. We read every single comment that comes through on the chat room, and we've got a whole team looking at that at the moment as well. So please do share your thoughts and ideas, and I can see them coming in now. So thank you for that. And just to say again, really, these offers are open to everybody. And what I'm finding is people are saying, but it's not for me, it's for the people who really need it. No, it's for you. And I've taken a little bit of that too. I've downloaded the apps and I'm finding that they are really helping me. So I would welcome people to think about, when you're looking at all of the offers, you know, what does this mean for me? And what does it mean for my colleagues and my friends as well? So on to the topic of really thinking about, how do we listen to, how do we support our BAME colleagues now, just right now, throughout COVID-19 and beyond COVID-19. So just before we launch into our speakers, I'd be really keen to know this question. I'm going to put a poll up in the moment. If you can't see the poll because you're on live on YouTube, then please do answer in the chat box, and answer in the chat box as well here as well if you can't access it when it comes up. So, to what extent do you have a thriving BAME network? So number one is, I don't really know if we've got a BAME network. Number two is, and I know there's quite a lot of conversation around this, is we've made a conscious decision not to have a BAME network. We had the conscious decision to have an all staff network. Number three is all about, hold your comments coming in. We're going to put a poll in, but keep them coming in the chat room too. Number three is about, we have a BAME network, but it's not really that active. We've got number four, which is we've got a network and it meets occasionally. And number five is all about, we have a thriving, active BAME network. So I'm going to ask my colleague Paul to put the poll up, and it's up now. And if you could answer in the poll. So number one was, I don't know if we have one. Number two was, we've made a decision to have an all staff network. Three is, we've got one, but it's not very active. Four is, yes, we've got one, it meets occasionally. And number five is all about, you know, we have an amazing, thriving, active network. So please do answer in the chat box if you can't see the poll, both live on YouTube and within Zoom. And I can see there is a lot coming through at the moment. So super. So share the results now and see the results now. And we've got 17% are saying that you don't know if you've got one. 2%, number two, which is all about, we've made a conscious decision to have an all staff network as 6%, and the majority of people, it's 35% of you have a network that meets occasionally, and another 35% of people saying that they have an active, thriving network. Thanks, Paul. Could we close the polls? So, following on from that, I would like to introduce Yvonne Coghill. Yvonne is an absolute powerhouse, and I have learned so much from listening to her talk. So I'm going to invite Yvonne to share a little bit more about her and why do we need to take action now? Why collectively do we need to take action now? Over to you, Yvonne.
Okay, I hope everybody can hear me. Good
yes,
afternoon.
I can hear you.
Hi. I don't know whether or not they can see me, but it's great to be here, and I'm really delighted that you've invited me to talk about health and well-being, because I think it is probably the most important thing that we could possibly talk about. I know that our NHS is incredibly diverse. It's a wonderful organisation and has been since its inception. We have had people from all over the world come to work in our NHS. And I think what's interesting now, and I try not to use the word unprecedented because everybody's using it, but it is an unprecedented time. And the fact that we are going through something that we've never been through before. I think it's really fantastic that we're focusing on people's health and well-being. It's essential, and it's something that we perhaps should have done many, many years ago. We should have spent the time that we're spending now, the energy that we're spending now, on focusing on all of our staff's well-being. Because what we know is that without our staff, we cannot deliver high quality patient care, patient safety and patient satisfaction. So treating our most precious commodity, our staff, well, has got to pay us dividends. It does lots and lots of different things, not least to keep the staff that we have in the organisation. It means that people will see that we treat our staff well, so they will want to join our organisation. And for those people that have been in and gone back out, it means that they might want to come back in. So staff health and well-being is absolutely key. I think at this time now, where we have seen so many of our colleagues get sick and perhaps die, and I don't really even know what to say about that. It just leaves me feeling really, really sad and very, very heartbroken that we have lost so many of our colleagues. But what's even more terrifying and scary for lots of staff out there is the fact that we're losing so many of our Black and minority ethnic colleagues. And I think that that is something that a lot of people are thinking about and wondering about and wanting to know why that is. And there's lots and lots of reasons for that. That's not what this call is about. It's about staff well-being. And I think that one of the things that for me, in my experience, staff find particularly encouraging and enabling is to have leadership that believes in them, that values them, that appreciates them, that enables them to be the best that they could possibly be. And I think that is something that we're obviously trying to do now by making sure that staff have access to all the health and care that we could possibly give them at this really, really difficult time. And I think that going forward, that has got to be something that we keep going, because it is essential that all of our staff have somewhere to go when they're not feeling 100%, somebody to talk to, and actually more than that, somebody who can understand who they are and where they come from. So the offers that we're making to people need to be, I think, tailored to the individual's needs. I don't think it's one size fits all, though it's really tricky to do that with an organisation that's got 1.4 million people. But I think what we have to do is to consider the needs of all of our members of staff, because they're all individuals, they're all different, and they'll all be wanting different things. So making sure that we think about that, and the offers that we offer and deliver are going to be culturally sensitive, are going to be something that people need, that people want, that people can turn to and go back to. And I think that is a really big ask. It's very, very tricky. It's not an easy thing to do. So I'm really impressed with the speed at which we've pulled together health and wellbeing package. And I'm also impressed with the numbers of people that are accessing it. But I also know, because I have spoken to lots of people from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds, that they're not necessarily always, they don't always think that these services are for them. And I think what we have to do is to make sure that they do understand that, you know, this is for you too, and we want to hear from you. What is it that you actually need from us, so that we can design, develop, and initiate services that are absolutely fit for purpose. Because, as I said, without our staff, we're actually going to get nowhere very, very fast. And I think we all know, the whole country knows now, how really important the NHS is. I think it always kind of did, but now, this time, I mean, I stand outside my house like everybody else on a Thursday evening, and you can hear clapping, fireworks going off, and, you know, people really genuinely appreciating the NHS, which I think is the best healthcare service in the world. But actually, it's really important that we understand the worth and value of every single member of staff in the NHS, and ensure that we do our best to make sure that they're fit and healthy, so that we can continue to deliver on services. Is that okay? Can I stop?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Yvonne. Thank you very much for those critical, crucial reminders, especially at this time. We all know and are aware of the fact that the health and well-being of our colleagues has that direct impact on delivery of care to our patients. Thanks also for that really, really timely reminder of the role of our leaders right across our organizations at this point in time. The role of leaders to make staff feel valued and, most of all, cared for, and that they have a sense of belonging in our organizations today. It's good to see lots of diverse offerings out there, but there is also something about tailoring those to our colleagues across the NHS. So thank you very much for those really critical key reminders and key points there shared with us today. I'm going to hand over to Helen now, and Helen will lead us in a conversation with our contributors today, and also will introduce our contributors today, and also take us to the chat room to share with us what's coming through in our chat box. Over to you, Helen.
Yeah, and thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Yvonne. And your task isn't over yet, because Yvonne, we want you to join us with Marie Gabriel and Dr. Navina Evans, and we're going to have a conversation. And what we particularly want to focus on is practically, you know, what can we do? Zoe said at the beginning, you know, this community that is meeting for the 4th time virtually, you know, very much wants to, you know, wants to think about practical things. What can we do? So with regard to the health and well-being of our BAME colleagues, you know, what are some of the things that that you know, all of us can do to make a difference? So what I'd like to do first is I'd like to call on Marie and Navina, and just we'll hear a little bit from both of them, and then Yvonne will join us, and we'll have a conversation. Just to say on this as well that we do want to hear your questions and reflections in the chat box. So what I'm going to do at various points is to actually ask some of the people from our team that are looking after the chat box to add to that, and to ask some questions as well. So what I wanted to ask first, so I can see Marie, and is Navina with us?
She was.
Yeah.
I'm here. Can you not see me?
I can hear you. I can see you now. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I've done my hair and everything. So.
Oh no, fabulous, Navina. That's excellent. So you know, so what I was going to ask Marie and Navina to start with is, can you tell us a little bit about your story? So Marie, you know, when I look at your background and the leadership role, you know, particularly in non-exec positions, and the extent to which you know, you've been a champion for a very long time of you know, people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic backgrounds. And you know, tell us a little bit about a little bit of your potted story that have got you to the place you have, and why this is so important to you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. So my background really is as an activist, initiated by my St. Lucian father, who believed everybody has to create a change and their own, contribute to a wider revolution to make a difference. And so for quite a long time, I started out my life, employment life, inside of social justice, anti-racist organisations, and was spotted, headhunted by somebody who saw my potential in a way that I didn't see, someone called Baroness Elaine Murphy, who encouraged me to become a non-executive director, which initially I was very upset about the thought that I'd be pulled inside the tent, but then realised when I did take on the role that you have a really unique position as an activist to change things from within an organisation, you know, maybe even more so than without. And so my journey into non-executive and board leadership roles began, but my core motivator around social justice, equity, and you know, with I'll be honest, with a specific interest in anti-racist work, I was able to continue to do that and actually try to work with the NHS to actually become a better employer for all of its staff. So my current roles are, I have 3 that I have to talk about here. So I've just stopped being chair at East London Foundation Trust, and I'm now chair at the North East London SDP. I'm chair at Norfolk and Suffolk Foundation Trust, and of course I'm chair of the Res SARG, which is Figure Advisory Group. And within each of those roles, you know, maintaining and ensuring the voice of all our staff, and those that we do not always hear or respond effectively to, are a key part of our strategy.
Brilliant. Thank you, Marie, so much. And you know, one thing I take from many things from just that, you know, that short contribution, is about the importance of senior leaders like, you know, Dame Elaine, finding people and mentoring and supporting, and what a difference that can make, because I mean, it's life-changing for you. So you know, how many more of us could do that? So no, thank you, and I really look forward to our conversation. And Navina, yeah, welcome Navina as well. So tell us a little bit about you know, your story and you know, the sense I get in you know, very much in East London with a very diverse workforce. You know, yeah, tell us a little bit about some of the story in the sense of how you've worked with diversity and inclusion, you know, supporting the well-being of you know, of everyone because of embracing diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Helen. Can I also start, please, with giving a little bit of my background?
Of course, I want you to. I absolutely want you to.
There's a bit in common with what Marie said. So I think it's really important. That everyone. It's wonderful. I can share my story with 500 people, perhaps. Amazing.
750 people
or more.
Yeah.
So I am an immigrant. And I grew up in a country in Southeast Asia where race was a really important thing, and it was very openly, you were categorized by your race, and it was policy, it was the way things were done. Certain races got this, certain races did that, certain race did this. That was it. So it's always been something in my life, and something that I've been really aware of. Also, therefore, really aware of what disadvantage comes along with people's perceptions based on your race, the color of your skin, or your ethnicity. And you know, there's plenty of research. Yvonne and others have talked about this. I don't have to go into it. It is an integral part of who I am. And for me, getting to where I am now, which is a position of enormous privilege, and considerable influence and power is huge responsibility, and one that I think I have to use really wisely. Being a woman and being an Asian woman is always part of what I am whenever I speak, whatever I speak about or whatever I do, and it's inevitably part of how I lead. I think I strongly identify with the communities that we serve, both in East London and in Bedfordshire and Luton. I think I always say this to people at induction. I really identify with people who are a little bit on the fringe or who are marginalised, but there's also something really powerful and vibrant and rich that people who are on the fringe and marginalised can bring to society or to a system or to an organisation, and that's really exciting. So we also have a lot of strengths and we have a lot of assets to bring. It's not just about, you know, injustice, and it's also about bringing out what we can offer and do. So with that in mind, I think what I feel about how I lead in our organisation is really focused on the culture of the organisation. I'll declare now that up until recently, Marie was the chair and I was the chief executive of the Same Trust. And I think that I'm really grateful. Like her, I had opportunities where people helped me along and helped me to get to places where I didn't think I had the right to be, or I didn't think that, you know, surely they wouldn't want me there. I'm going to a job in October in Health Education England, and I actually did also think, surely that's not a job for me, or that's not a job for someone like me, not me, that is not a job for someone like me. Well, we'll see. It's really important in our organisation that we build a culture where we actually challenge some of our preconceptions, that we truly value everyone, that we talk about assumptions, and that we try and break down those sorts of assumptions and prejudice, because it exists everywhere, and we all at one point or another will succumb to it, and we need to be able to be brave enough to speak about it openly, so that we can actually tackle it. Shall I stop there, and then perhaps when we come back can elaborate?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and I think you know, in a sense, we've had a call to action and an opening statement from all three of you. That is fantastic. So the first thing I want to ask, I'm going to go straight to it, okay? Which is, you know, just hearing what you're saying. I mean, all of you really. You know, there's people are saying to me, okay, some white colleagues, senior leader colleagues are saying to me, you know, I feel, you know, what's happening at the moment to our BAME colleagues is, you know, it's really awful. You know, it's about justice, it's about inequality, and we've got to tackle it. And at the same time, I, as a white leader, feel quite uncomfortable talking about it, because I'm not because I don't believe that we've got to take action now, but because I'm really frightened I'm going to say the wrong thing or do something offensive. So, like, can I ask all three of you, you know, practically, what advice do you give to you know, to leaders in that situation? Because a lot of people are thinking it even if they're not saying it.
So I think that all three of us, it's Marie here, I think all three of us get asked that question as to what. And I think all, you know, as in any situation, a leader has to be honest, they have to be vulnerable, they have to be authentic. So the starting point of this is, I am worried, I am concerned, and I am sad that I am losing a disproportionate member of my team, or more are dying. And then within that team, I include agency and subcontracted workers who we're not always thinking about in terms of who COVID or inequity can affect. And I think it is about them working with them BME networks, with the res expert leads that we've been spreading and trust, with the res team and with BME colleagues, to actually ask, how do we fashion the narrative? And and I know that each of us have helped people to think through that, so it's still authentically theirs and relevant to that person's organisation, but there's a narrative there. I think the other thing that leaders get worried about is, if I single out BME staff, am I seen as privileging that group of people, or am I making things worse? And even BME staff feel uncomfortable with that, to be honest. And I think it's really important to be clear that this conversation is about unity, it's about equity, it's about making sure that everyone is included, and that will benefit all. And actually the relationship between the quality of services and the experience of staff, particularly BME staff. I'll stop there and let my colleagues come in.
Yvonne, shall I go next?
Yeah,
Helen, the first thing you said was that you're nervous, you're anxious, you're afraid you might say the wrong thing, and through the screen there is emotion, and there's a connection, and there's authenticity. So the first thing I would say is, I wish that more of my colleagues would say that. And I think as leaders, it's quite hard sometimes to admit that you don't know what to do, and you might get it wrong. And I think that's a really good start. And as Marie says, with authenticity. The other thing is that if you have a BAME network, that's a really good place. So I was interested in that poll that said some organisations don't think they need to have a BAME network. Well, I'd be very keen to go and have conversations in those organisations to perhaps have a discussion about why this matters. And if you do have a BAME network as a leader, as a white leader, sitting there and being able to just listen and not feel you have to fix it straight away and ask for help, I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah. Thank you, Navina. And Yvonne, what wisdom would you add?
So when I first started down the road of doing this work, it was really, really interesting, because I made the assumption that people would know what to do, that they would be able to know that staff were having a difficult time, and that they would, as senior leaders, see that and know that there was something that they needed to do. What I now know is that a lot of people don't know what to do, and they are uncomfortable, and they do feel awkward around this agenda. And I think the most important thing that senior leaders can do is talk to their staff. And I remember going into the Royal Free, and I will name him because he actually did this. Dominic Dodds was the chair, and David Sloman was chief executive at the time. And I can remember saying, you have to talk to your staff. And so Dominic, he walked the corridors and he stopped staff and he asked them, he asked his BME staff, how can I help? What can I do? Because it was probably year 2 of the res data. And the staff actually sat him down and spoke to him and told him exactly what was going on for them. And Dominic said he was so shocked he had never heard anything like it in his life. So the advice I would give would be to ask and listen. Those 2 things are really important, because I think a lot of the time leaders think that they need to have the answer, and the answer usually comes from their staff and those people who are experiencing difficulties or discrimination or whatever it is you want to call it. So listen and ask.
Thank you all. I'm just going to give notice to Louise in the chat box. I'm going to get you to ask the next question, after this one. So my next question was going to be, given that this is a conversation, okay, in terms of what you heard from each other, okay, would you like to comment on something? So Navina, would you like to comment on something that Yvonne said, and then Yvonne to comment on something that Marie said, and then Marie to comment on something that Navina said? Is that okay? Yeah. So let's start. Yeah. So Navina, do you want to comment on something that Yvonne said?
Yeah, and actually, Yvonne, it's actually a conversation that we've been having outside of here, and many of our colleagues have been quite open with us about the not knowing, and I think that is something new that I have seen, Yvonne, and I don't know if you would agree with me, But you said that when you first started this work, you assumed that that people would know, and they were leaders, and they fix problems. That's their job. But actually, that for a lot of people, they don't. And I think the words that have been used to describe it to me is, because I haven't lived your experience, or I haven't lived that experience. Unless I am confronted with the stories, or unless I hear the reality, looking at the data, and data is very important, and all of that is very important, but it needs to connect emotionally. And that's why I think sitting in a BAME network and hearing from people and asking and listening is so important. I'm a great believer in stories. And that's what I heard from you, Yvonne, which I think I absolutely with you. I think more and more people are acknowledging that.
Brilliant. Yeah, and Yvonne, would you like to comment on something you heard Marie say?
Well, Marie
Remember,
said quite
I'm
a
your
lot,
chair. Remember, I'm your chair.
Sorry?
Yeah.
I do.
Remember, I'm your chair.
So I can't remember all of it, but what I think I heard you say was that it's really important to engage with your staff, and to make sure that you are authentic, and to bring your authenticity to the table, to the fore, and to be yourself, because being yourself means that you can engage with people, and they will see that you are being genuine and being real, and that you're genuinely interested and care for them. So I think that authenticity thing is really important.
Okay.
And then Marie, would you like to comment on something that you heard Navina say?
And actually, I think Yvonne and Navina have talked about really, that engagement with staff. And I think, completely and absolutely agree. And what I would add to that is the response in return. So it's good to listen. It's good to listen with curiosity. It's good to be authentic. But actually, then you've got to do something, and it's about what you do together to create the change that you need to see. And some of that stuff can be really immediate. So we know when COVID started, it was like there were no Black people in all the images that worked for the NHS. So some of that can be really quickly sort of like addressed. But actually, it's about making sure this is just not a COVID conversation. So at the very beginning, Zoe was talking about, now and into the future. We are now, all of us, going to be part of recovery and resetting the NHS conversations. And what we need to make sure is this equity conversation, the voice of all conversation, and the need to address inequalities wherever they exist, is a core part of the resetting of the new NHS post-COVID, so that all the things that we're learning together about, making sure that we've got diverse talent, actually the things we knew from before about making sure res is embedded and really in your organisations become a core part of your organisations, in your discussions with your partners, and in discussions with your SDPs as well.
Helen, can I, sorry, so in the spirit of the conversation, can I just pick up on something that Marie said, which I think is really important? Because I think Marie's just reminded me, and hopefully all of us, that COVID it appears to be amplifying what we already knew was happening. It's sort of just made it kind of more stark, bigger, and more, there's a sense of urgency about it. And a lot of the issues that are being raised is stuff that we were grappling with, or we thought we were grappling with before now, through the res, through lots of other equality and diversity and inclusion work, through our recruitment, disciplinary, sickness management, all of those things. We've been thinking about it for some time. And I know in my own organisation, we've been grappling with it. It's been in my objectives. So this has just sort of made it kind of almost like raw and really, really open. And we have to confront it in a way that perhaps in the past we could tread gently or tiptoe around it.
Thank you so much. And and I think it's amazing when you look. We've got about 700 odd people across our platforms today that are all we're all thinking about this, we're all listening, absolutely hearing this message for action. So we've got a few minutes left. So I was going to call on Louise. Louise, have you got a question from the chat box that our panel can answer fairly quickly?
Lots of questions in the chat box. And
I know.
just one is so hard. There's been some great conversations on here, so thank you everybody for your contributions. Lots of exchanges back and forth. I'm stuck between two, but I think a really important one that's just recently come through is obviously this is raising the question around health inequalities at a societal level. So there's obviously a part that organisations can play in contributing to the good health of their workforce and specifically redressing some of those health inequalities. How do we ensure that that level of interest lasts post-COVID? That was through from Alexandra.
Gosh.
Yeah,
Alexandra,
that's a really good question, actually.
That would be Alexandra, wouldn't it? Do you want me to
And I think,
start
can I go first, Yvonne? That's what
Yeah, go on then.
go. This is what I'm trying to say about there'll be a resetting of the NHS after this. And what we have to fight for is actually that health inequalities are a core part of that reset in the NHS. So addressing the balance around health inequalities has actually not in STP land has not been as important, I'm being really honest, as the finance bit of it or the transformation bit of it. But none of those will work unless we actually start to address health inequalities. And we're all being very kind, but I actually think that we need to hold leaders to account for this. In the same way that we'll hold them to account to balance in the books, we need to hold them to account in a probably a more rigorous way about in terms of addressing equality and health inequalities. Yvonne, I'll let you go.
Thank you. Well, I always agree with my chair, but I kind of disagree. My glass is half empty on this because, and I'll tell you why. These inequalities didn't happen overnight. We know that it's taken 400 years or more to get us to where we are, with Black people at the bottom of the pile and white people at the top. We know that most of the wealth in the world is held by white people. We know that more poor people in the world are from Black and ethnic minority backgrounds. And we know that the health inequalities, Marmot did another study recently, are vast and wide. And we also know that people's attitudes and beliefs are more to the right of centre than they are to the left. And we know that in this country, and we know that in America based on recent things, let's call them that, because I don't want to use the B word, but we know that that's the issue. And I'm not 100% convinced that, at the moment, everybody's jumping up and down, everybody's really upset, it's awful, it's terrible because we're losing lives. But I keep on hearing people saying we want to go back to normal. We want to go back to normal. Now, what does normal look like? Normal for Black and ethnic minority people in the NHS is not the good news. The RES data has shown that over the last 5 years. So if we're going to go back to normal, it means going back to that. And I would suggest that unless leaders really, really take this seriously, then we are going to go back to normal. So I'm not 100% sure that the reset's going to be any different to what it was, but I'm hopeful. How about that?
Thank you, Ron. And last word to Navina. Are you hopeful?
So I don't think we could ever go back to where we were before. It's just not going to be possible. But I think what I'm concerned about is that there's an opportunity here that we miss. However, it is a moment where a lot of us, and there are enough people, I think, to galvanize around and really make things happen at different levels. So some people need to be challenging to leaders. Some people need to tackle the sort of politics of it. Some people need to hold on to sort of the improvement, the education, making small changes. Good things happen from the bottom up. And as we know in the improvement world, that small change happens and then it spreads and it spreads and we spread. So I think that we need a sort of efforts at every level to make this happen. And there is enough of a collective desire for change for us to ride this wave. For those of us who have the ability to make something of this, I think it is incumbent on us not to sit back and just be kind of down and doom and gloom about it. We have a responsibility to make it happen.
Very good, thank you. You know, absolutely here. And given that, you know, I'm running over, and Zoe's going to be angry with me, but I've got the floor, so I'm just going to do it. So just like in maybe one breath each to finish, okay? You know, given that that people on our webinars like really practical things, okay? So you know, and again, this could be a reinforcement of something you've said before or something you're going to say already, okay? What's your number one piece of practical advice in terms of the health and well-being of our BAME colleagues' workforce going forward? Yvonne, would you like to go first?
Okay, so for me, it's got to be that demonstrable leadership, like the chief executive down in Somerset, who took it upon himself to write the email to his staff, even though, you know, people thought it was awful and terrible and dreadful. But that demonstrable leadership meant that a lot of people actually sat up and took notice, and that actually he is doing something for us, and it made people feel much better. So that's really important, I believe.
Yeah, thank you.
That was a sentence.
Yeah, no, it's very good. I know you definitely met my criteria there. And Marie.
So mine would be actually working alongside those who feel it and know it, and actually, so not just listening, but working with them, and and actually allowing them to take the, or not allowing, but giving space for them to take the power to make the, to create the change within your organisations.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. And Navina, finally.
Yeah, so I think that for BAME staff and for leaders, there is a relationship that needs to work here. It's not good enough to write policy or guidance. I think we have to have the conversation, and the conversation has to consist of having the difficult conversation, listening to what's scary, and then asking people to come up with what would work, what could help, and then making it happen, because you'd be surprised, it's actually mostly quite simple stuff.
Yeah, okay. Thank you all. And I know there's an amazing amount of content and wisdom in the chat box as well, and we have to find a way of not just reflecting on the conversation we've had there, but also the parallel conversation that's been going on in the chat box. So I really want to thank Yvonne and Marie and Navina for that conversation and your wisdom. And I want to thank everybody else for what's in the chat box that we haven't necessarily been able to respond to or even synthesize in this timescale, but we will take it and we will make some things happen with that tremendous contribution. And just to thank all three of you, and I think you are such amazing visible leaders, and I look forward to a future when you are the norm, okay, and that's my new normal, not the outstanding exception. And thank you all. And Zoe, I'm sorry, but back to you.
Thanks, Helen. And I'm going to come to Sonia in a moment too. So thank you all for that fabulous conversation. I got so much from it, and I can see from the chat box as well that there is a lot of actions that we can take as well. And I always like to think of the head, the heart and the hands. And you've definitely got me with the head, the logical argument about why we need to change. You've got me right in the heart that we need to change. And you've also got my hands, which is I'm going to do something practical from this. And I'm going to ask everybody in a moment to put in the chat box, what is the one thing that you're going to do? We spoke about, and I heard about small changes. If everybody does one little small change, we can change the world together. So please pop those in the chat box. And I'd like us to go to the poll, Paul, if that's okay. So if we could put this on the slide, if we can make this live now, Paul, that would be fantastic. So to what extent has today's session been useful in your own role, supporting staff, their health and well-being during and after COVID-19? And we can see those coming in. And please do share the reason why you've put your comment, please do share that in the chat box as well. So we've got those coming in, and we will close that very shortly. So just a couple more moments. Lovely, thank you, Paul. So you should be able to see those results on your screen now. So we've got the majority, which is 33% there on number 4. So please do keep adding to the chat box about how we could make it even better. What is it that you need to ensure that you and your colleagues take this forward? And I saw a fantastic little comment in the chat box, and apologies, it was moving so fast I didn't catch your name, but what you said was really poignant, and it was, how do we engage with people who aren't here today? And that's going to be one of my actions that I'm going to take forward. How can I help people, bring people to the party who aren't here already? So Sonia, before we very briefly share the next session, would you like to share a few final thoughts?
Yeah, so a thought from M, who unfortunately wasn't able to chat in the box, was around absolutely having the conversation, that the silence is worse than having the conversation and potentially getting it wrong. I think for me, in honesty, sometimes this can feel a really overwhelming place to be, because you don't want to get it wrong. You absolutely want to do the right thing. I know with all of our offers, I want to make sure that they are really speaking to our entire community. From a practical level, just through one conversation, again with Yvonne today, thinking about agency staff who are not employees of our organisations and therefore have a worse experience than our staff, we were thinking about how do we help agency staff know the offers are there for them. Was a practical action that we could take. I know that we're taking practical actions around risk assessments and really supporting our BAME colleagues in terms of who should be on shift, who should be maybe further away from that active shift level. So there's lots of work going on, and I guess what we've got to do is get better at communicating that work and feeling more able to have the conversations with the right people so that we're informed in the decisions that we're making.
Thanks, Sonia. 2 final things to share with you is, I mentioned at the very beginning of this session, we are collecting your experiences. So please do have a little look on the Horizons website and click on to share your experiences with us. And thank you to Laura Jane Sims, who tweeted about it, and she said, I've used it, it was quick, straightforward and thought-provoking, and this will really help us support you in the future. So to conclude, our next session next Wednesday at 4 p.m. is all about the health and well-being of a newly remote workforce. So please do join us for that. So I'm going to ask for our slides to be, we'll just stop sharing the slides, and just as we just spend just a moment, we can just see who is on visually, who is with us today. So it's absolutely lovely to see lots of people that I know and lots of people that I don't know yet. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello Alan, hello Alan, hi Natalie, Sue, you're smiling lovely. Janine, I love, hi, you're just waving. I've seen lots and lots of rainbows, lots of waves. Hello, I can see lots of friends. So you can flick through all of the pictures by going left and right. There's 16 pictures and different screens that you can see. So from me and Elizabeth and all of our speakers today, thank you so much for joining us. Let's go together and change the world.
Thank you.